The year was 1867, and the frontier was a land of bone and dust, where men carved kingdoms with lead, and women bore scars deeper than the desert's canyons. I thought I had seen every kind of wound this country could brand upon a soul. That was before the day she lifted her sleeve. The town of Dry Creek smelled of sweat, whiskey, and horses that hadn't seen a brush in weeks. The trading post sat crooked against a main street, its windows hazed with dust, its doors swinging wide to let in flies and out secrets. I stepped through, the clink of my spurs drawing glances, but no greetings. Men leaned on the counter, arguing over salt pork, flour, bullets. The stove at the far wall spat out greasy heat, and in the middle of that smoke-stained room stood a woman, Apache young but not untested. Her hair was braided with strips of leather, her stance stiff as a drawn bowstring. Two men circled her, voices low and ugly. She took it right off the barrel. One sneered, holding up a sack of coffee beans. Caught her red-handed. "I didn't steal," she shot back, her words sharp, her English broken but clear enough. The storekeeper frowned but said nothing. The room shifted, waiting. A murmur started, men too eager for a spectacle. I moved closer. "That true?" I asked, voice carrying just enough to hush the crowd. She flicked her eyes to me, dark, defiant, and edged with the kind of pain you don't fake. She didn't answer. The taller of the two men barked a laugh. "What's it to you, stranger?" "She's a thief. Savages don't belong here." The woman's chin lifted. "Not thief," she said again, her accent thick. The crowd edged closer, breath held. Someone muttered, "Make her prove it." Another spat tobacco into the sawdust, and then, in a motion sharp with anger, she yanked her sleeve up to the elbow. The gasps came before I understood what I was seeing. It wasn't ink. It wasn't paint. The flesh on her arm was scarred, a blackened brand burned into her skin in the shape of a crooked R, seared deep and ugly. Not a mark of tribe, not a choice. The room fell silent, as if the stove itself had choked on its smoke. She stared at them, at me, at anyone who dared meet her eyes. "Not thief," she said again, voice lower now, ragged. "Slave." A man cursed under his breath. Another shifted uncomfortably, but a third, leaning against the wall with a bounty hunter's smirk, grinned. "Well, I'll be—" Didn't know she was one of Red Jack's girls. That brand means she belongs to him. Her jaw tightened. She didn't flinch, but her hand balled into a fist. And right there, with that brand burned into the air between us, I knew the room wasn't going to let her walk free. It started with whispers, like snakes brushing through dry grass. Then the bounty hunter pushed himself off the wall, boots crunching across the floor. "There's a price on runaways," he said, licking his lips. "Red Jack don't like losing property. Anyone brings her back stands a collect." I felt the heat rise in me. Property. The word sour my mouth. "She's no man's property," I said. My hand hovered close to the coat on my hip. The bounty hunter chuckled. "You gonna fight the whole damn room to prove it?" And maybe I was, because I saw the way the others leaned forward now. Greed in their eyes, the brand shining like blood and water to sharks. The woman stood frozen, her gaze locked on the door as if calculating how many steps it would take to make a run for it. But she didn't move. Not yet. The first shove came fast. One of the two men who'd accused her jabbed her shoulder. She spun, ready to strike, but another hand grabbed at her braid. She lashed out, nails raking skin. The room erupted. Fists swung. A bottle shattered. Someone pulled a knife, the glint flashing in lamplight. I drew. My coat roared, splitting the chaos with thunder. Smoke stung my nose, ears ringing. The knife clattered to the floor. "Back off." I barked, voice iron. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the bounty hunter snarled and reached for his own iron. Too slow. I leveled mine at his chest. "Don't," I warned. His hand froze halfway. His eyes narrowed. But he stepped back, spitting at the sawdust. The woman, breathing hard, glanced at me. For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Not trust, but recognition. "Move," I told her. She hesitated only a second. Then we pushed through the press of men, out into the glare of the street. The sunlight was blinding after the smoky dark. Horses shifted at the hitching post, tails swishing flies. Behind us, voices rose, angry, hungry. I didn't wait. I grabbed her wrist, pulled her toward my bay. Up, I said. Her eyes blazed at the touch, but she swung into the saddle behind me without a word. Shots cracked from the doorway. Splinters burst from the post beside us. My bay reared. I dug in spurs. We were gone, thundering down the street, the town's curses chasing our dust. The desert swallowed us fast. Dry Creek shrank behind, the sun sinking low, painting the rocks blood red. She clung to me as the horse galloped, her breath hot against my back. No words passed between us, only the pounding of hooves and the echo of gunfire fading. We veered into a dry wash, sand spraying, then up into a canyon where shadows stretched long and cool. My ears strained. Behind us, faint but certain, came the rhythm of pursuit. They were riding hard. "We don't stop," I said over my shoulder. She didn't answer. The trail twisted through boulders and brush, the air sharp with sage. My horse's chest heaved, foam flecking his bit. Still, we pushed on until the sky deepened from copper to violet. Only when the canyon narrowed to a slit did I haul the bay to a halt. I slid down, pulling her with me. The horse trembled, slick with sweat. "We make camp here," I said, scanning the shadows. "They'll ride past if we keep quiet." She stood stiff, dust streaking her face, eyes still burning. The sleeve of her dress had slipped, the brand catching the dying light. I looked at it, then away. "What's your name?" I asked. She hesitated. For the first time all day, her fire dimmed just a little. Then, softly, "Naya." I nodded. "I'm Cole." No thanks. No trust. Just names in the silence. I built a small fire, low and hidden. She sat across from me, knees pulled close, gaze never dropping. The flames flickered across her scar, across eyes that seemed more than anyone her age should. The canyon wind sighed through the rocks. Somewhere an owl called. I studied her and thought of that brand again, of men cruel enough to press iron to flesh as if a person were cattle. I didn't know her story, didn't know what else she'd run from. But I knew one thing as sure as the fire's heat. No one, I said quietly, almost to myself, will claim you again. Her gaze sharpened, as if testing my words for cracks. She didn't answer. Not then, but the way she leaned just slightly closer to the fire told me she'd heard. Dawn crept into the canyon in shades of gold and gray, thin light touching the stones as if testing their edges. Smoke from the dying fire curled upward, vanishing into the high desert air. I stirred awake with my hand, already on my coat, habit carved from years of soldiering. But there was no threat, only the quiet figure kneeling at the stream. Naya crouched low, her hands in the water, washing the dust from her face. The cold stream caught the brand on her arm and turned it into something rawer, darker, as though the scar itself drank the morning light. She didn't hide it now. She let it breathe, let it stare back at the world like a wound that refused to heal. I pushed myself to my feet, the ache in my shoulders sharp from a ride. My horse grazed nearby, sides heaving from yesterday's flight. We couldn't stay here long. The men who chased us would not give up so easily. "You're quiet," I said. Naya didn't turn. "I have nothing to say." "You said plenty yesterday." Her fingers stilled in the water. She looked back at me, eyes steady, voice harder. I said only what was needed, not more. I nodded slowly. The scar was still burning in my head. That brand. I'd seen cattle marked like that, horses too, never human being. "You ever gonna tell me who did it?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. Men who thought they could own me. Men who thought the fire could take what spirit cannot. Before I could answer, I saw the faint tracks in the dust near the canyon's mouth. Hoof prints fresh, no more than hours old. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "They're near. We have to move." She rose without a word, gathering her things. Her movements were sharp, efficient, no wasted motion. She'd been hunted before. That much was clear. By the time we mounted, The sun was a thin blade above the horizon. We rode hard, the air cool and biting. Every shadow a reminder of the men closing in. The land shifted as we pushed east. Scrub giving way to thick stands of pine, the scent of resin sharp as smoke. My gut told me the hunters weren't far. And I was right. We reached the river just as the morning broke full. The water ran fast, swollen from spring melt, froth curling around half-submerged boulders. "We cross," I said. Naya studied the current, her jaw set. The horse would not make it. It has to. Before I could guide the bay forward, she slipped down, stripping off her boots and slinging our packs higher. She tied them tight, then waded in, the water biting wet around her legs. I swore under my breath, driving the horse in behind her. The current slammed against us. The bay snorted, hooves scraping stone beneath the torrent. My boots filled with icy weight. Naya stumbled once, caught herself, teeth bared against a pole. The packs dragged her sideways, but she clung fast. The river roared, spraying cold across my face, stealing my breath. Then the bay slipped, rearing, and one of the packs tore loose. "Leave it!" I shouted. "No!" she cried, lunging. Fingers caught the strap, knuckles white as bone. She dragged it close, shoved it to her chest, and fought through the current until she reached the far bank. I drove the horse harder, half dragging, half swimming, until his hooves struck mud, and we clawed our way up beside her. We collapsed on the far side, dripping, lungs heaving. She hugged the pack like it was life itself. I looked at her, drenched, hair plastered to her face, eyes fierce even in exhaustion. "You should have let it go," I said. Her voice was ragged but steady. "That pack holds more than you understand." I didn't argue. Not then. By nightfall, the pines closed in around us. We built no fire. The cold bit deep, but better cold than a bullet in the dark. I wrapped myself in my blanket and listened. Crickets hummed, an owl hooted, but beneath it all, the faint crack of a twig where no twig should break. "They're near," I murmured. Naya didn't answer. She sat across from me, her knees drawn up, the pack cradled close. In the dim starlight, I saw her touch the scar again, almost absently, like a woman tracing the edge of an old wound. Finally, she spoke. "You want to know my story?" I said nothing, waiting. "I was taken when I was 15, she began, voice low, steady. "Men rode into our village at dawn, killed those who fought, chained the rest. They sold us at auction like horses, to whites, to Mexicans, to outlaws." Her hands tightened around the pack. "I was sold to Red Jack. He put the fire to me himself. Said it marked me forever. Said no man could look at me and not know whose I was." The words cut sharper than any knife. I clenched my fists against the urge to break something that wasn't there. "I ran," she continued. "Twice. The first time they caught me. The second I hid in the desert. Walked for days. Found traders, made it here." Her gaze lifted, fierce again. "But you see, Cole, I am hunted. You stand with me. You are hunted too." Her voice dropped softer, edged with something bitter. "You think you saved me? No. You tied your fate to mine. Red Jack does not forgive." I drew a slow breath. The firelight of her story burned hotter than any brand. "Then let him come," I said. The woods answered first. A crack, a shout, then the snap of rifle fire. Bark splintered inches from my head. "Down!" I barked. We rolled, scrambling behind a fallen log as bullets tore through leaves. Shadows moved between the trees, men circling, guns ready. Naya pulled a pistol from the pack, small but steady in her hand. She fired once, the shot echoing sharp. A cry answered. The fight turned fast and brutal. Gunfire cracked like thunder, smoke burning my lungs. A horse screamed in the dark. I shot one, dropped another who charged too close. The night pulsed with violence. Every heartbeat a gamble. A bullet grazed my arm, hot pain tearing cloth and skin. I cursed, clutching the wound. Naya was beside me in an instant, dragging me back as another shot hit the log. She pressed her hand to my arm, firm, unshaken. Hold still. Her fingers burned against me, steady as iron. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes beyond fury, resolve, raw and unyielding. When the gunfire finally faded, the woods fell silent. The men were gone, bodies left in the pine needles, shadows fleeing back into deeper night. I leaned against a log, blood seeping through the ragged cloth. Naya tore a strip from her sleeve and bound the wound tight. "You saved me," I rasped. She shook her head. "I saved myself. You only happen to still be alive." And yet, the way her hands lingered, the way her breath caught for half a beat, told a different story. By the next night, we found a clearing deep in the pines. The stars spilled bright above us, cold and endless. A small fire crackled low, throwing sparks into the dark. Naya sat close, her hair loose now, shadows dancing across her face. She hummed softly, a tune without words, old and sorrowful. It carried through the night like smoke, thin but unbroken. I listened, the ache in my arm dull beneath the sound. It wasn't just a song. It was a memory, a tether to a life she refused to let die. When she finished, I said quietly, "That brand doesn't define you." Her eyes flicked up sharp. "You think words can change iron?" "No, but courage can." For the first time, a faint smile ghosted across her lips. Not warmth, something harder, but real. "You are a strange man, Cole," she said. "Stranger than branding a human being." She didn't answer. Instead, she fed another stick to the fire, watching the sparks drift skyward. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy with something else. Understanding, maybe, or the beginning of it. I lay back, staring at the stars. My body was battered, my future uncertain, but I felt a weight shift in me. For the first time since the war, I wasn't riding for myself. I was riding for someone else. And the thought of Red Jack, of the men who had marked her, no longer filled me with dread. It filled me with a cold, burning promise. The abandoned mission rose out of the desert like a skeleton, its adobe walls crumbling, its wooden beams jutting from the roofline like ribs. The cross still stood at the peak, weathered and leaning, silhouetted against a sky red with sunset. Wind whistled to the empty bell tower, carrying the scent of dust and gun oil. We'd ridden hard for 2 days, chasing distance, buying time, but I knew time was a currency we didn't have. Red Jack would not stop. The bounty hunters were just the beginning. And now, standing in the ruins of a place built for salvation, I wondered if we'd find damnation instead. Naya dismounted in silence, her braids swinging against her back, her eyes scanning the horizon with the instinct to prey that had become predator. Her hand rested on the rifle she'd carried since the pine ambush. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "They will come tonight." I ran a hand across my jaw, feeling the grit of the road still clinging to me. "Then we make them regret it." The horse shifted uneasily, ears pricking at something unseen. I tied him inside the courtyard, then helped Naya drag beams and stones to the entrance, fashioning cover where we could. The mission walls were broken, but they gave us angles, shadows, a chance. As the sun bled away, Naya crouched in the corner of the ruined chapel, the firelight painting her face in flickering gold. She was cleaning her rifle with deliberate, practiced motions, every stroke of the cloth an act of patience and rage. I watched her a moment. The brand on her arm caught the glow, stark and cruel. I thought of all it meant, all it had stolen, and all it had failed to break. "You ever think going back?" I asked. She looked up sharply. "Back where?" "To your people, to your village." Her expression hardened. "There is no village. They are gone. What remains is here." She touched her chest, then the rifle, and here. Her gaze cut to the pack she still guarded, as if it held the marrow of her soul. I nodded once. Words felt useless against grief carved so deep. The night came down heavy, moonless, thick with silence. Then hooves, distant, rolling closer. A dozen at least, maybe more. Naya rose, slinging the rifle across her shoulder. "It is him," she whispered. "Red Jack." The name hung in the air like smoke from a fire not yet seen, but already smelled. I stepped into the courtyard, Colt ready, heart beating slow and steady. The mission gates yawned open to the dark beyond. Then they came. First the riders, shadows cutting across the desert, torches in hand. Their fire lit the night in cruel flickers. At their head rode a man larger than life, shoulders broad, beard thick and black streaked with gray. His coat flared behind him, scarlet as blood even in the dark. His eyes, when the torchlight hit them, gleamed cold as polished steel. Red Jack. He reined in at the gates, grinning wide enough to show gold teeth. His voice boomed across the courtyard. Well, thought I'd sniff you out sooner or later, girl. Didn't think you'd bring me a friend. Naya stepped forward into the firelight, her rifle steady. Her face was stone, but her voice cut like glass. I am not yours. Red Jack's grin twisted into something uglier. You'll always be mine. That mark says so. He raised his arm, showing the branding iron he carried strapped to his saddle. Even across the courtyard, I could smell the iron, the memory of its heat. I felt Naya stiffen beside me. No, she said. Tonight that ends. The night exploded. Gunfire cracked like a storm breaking. Bullets tore into the adobe walls, dust raining down in choking clouds. I dropped behind cover, Colt barking flame, shots sparking from stone. Naya fired from the chapel doorway, her aim sharp, each shot a defiance of everything they tried to steal from her. Men screamed. Horses reared. Smoke filled the courtyard until the torches blurred into hellfire. Red Jack bellowed orders, his revolver spitting fire. He drove his men forward like cattle relentless. 2 fell. Another dropped screaming into the dust. But still they pressed. I reloaded with shaking hands, the cylinder hot, sweat stinging my eyes. A bullet clipped my hat, sending it spinning. I ducked lower, breath ragged, heart pounding. Through the haze I saw Naya, moving like a spirit, rifle crack echoing, hair loose, eyes blazing. She was fury made flesh. Then Red Jack charged. He dismounted in a single motion, storming through the smoke with a branding iron in one hand, his revolver in the other. His shots tore chunks from the wall, each step closer, closer. I rose to meet him, Colt raised, but he was fast, too fast. His revolver roared. Fire ripped across my side, pain searing hot. I staggered, the Colt slipping from my grip. Red Jack loomed, teeth bared, the iron swinging high. And then Naya was there. She didn't scream. She didn't falter. She raised her rifle and fired point blank. The shot thundered, echoing off the mission walls. Red Jack's body jerked, his grin vanishing in a wash of blood. The iron clattered from his hand, hissing as it struck the dust. For a moment, the night held still. Then the outlaws broke, fleeing into the dark, their torches vanishing one by one, until only the firelight of the mission remained. The courtyard stank of blood and smoke. Bodies sprawled in the dust. My breath rattled, shallow and sharp. Naya stood above Red Jack's corpse, chest heaving, the rifle trembling in her grip. The brand on her arm glowed faintly in the dying light. She stared down at the man who had marked her, lips pressed tight. At last she whispered, voice breaking, "You do not own me. Not now. Not ever." Dawn broke slow and pale, painting the ruins in shades of ash and gold. The night's violence lay thick around us, blood dry black in the dust, bullet holes marking the walls like scars. I sat against a crumbling stone, my side bandaged clumsily, the ache deep but not fatal. Every breath felt like dragging glass through my lungs, but I was alive. Barely. Naya moved through the courtyard in silence, her braid undone, hair falling loose around her shoulders. She gathered the bodies one by one, dragging them outside the gates. Not gently, not cruelly, just necessary work. When she came to Red Jack, she paused. The branding iron lay beside him, blackened, its head still smelling of old fire. She picked it up slowly, holding it in both hands. The weight of it dragged her arms low, her eyes fixed on the shape, the same shape carved into her flesh. For a long time she stood that way, the wind tugging at her hair, the sun catching her face in harsh relief. Then she dropped it into the fire. The iron hissed, sparks flying, until it lay buried beneath the flames, consumed. Only then did she turn, her eyes finding mine. "You are hurt," she said. "I'll live." I rasped. She knelt beside me, checking the bandage. Her touch was firm, careful. For the first time, her gaze softened. "You fought for me," she said quietly. "I fought with you. I corrected." Her lips curved, faint, fleeting, but real. The closest I'd seen to a smile. We sat in silence as the sun climbed higher, the fire crackling, the mission breathing slow again. For a while, it almost felt like peace. Finally, Naya spoke. "He is gone, but the brand remains." She touched the scar on her arm, tracing its edges. "What do I do with it?" I studied her, the firelight glinting in her eyes. "You wear it, not as his mark, as yours. Proof you lived, proof you fought back." She looked at me a long moment. Then she nodded once, as if carving the words into her soul. We left the mission at noon, the desert stretching endless before us. Our horse bore the weight of both packs, his hooves striking steady. The wind carried the scent of sage and dust, the promise of miles yet to come. Naya rode beside me, rifle across her back, face set toward the horizon. The brand still scarred her arm. But now when I looked at it, I didn't see chains. I saw survival. And as the sun burned down upon us, I knew this. No matter what came, no one would ever claim her again. Not while I still drew breath. And maybe that was the truth of this land. The frontier didn't care who you were. It only cared what you endured. She had endured. She had conquered. And the story of Naya, the branded woman who became her own, would outlive us both.